Hi all. Wish you all a happy learning. This is Yam Nirmala working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Applications, Hindustan College of Engineering and Technology. And I'm here to present a lecture on loading datasets into data frames along with the implementation procedure. Before moving to the concept of datasets, let me just give you an example of what is a dataset. We are going to deal with machine learning applications. In order to get insights from the data, we definitely require a dataset. And in general, the dataset can be a combination of numerical quantity and categorical quantity. And once we go with the concept of supervised learning, there will be a target variable which needs to be identified. And also, if it is going to be an unsupervised learning algorithm, the dataset contains only the input parameters without the target variable. And once the dataset is ready, we are going to store the dataset in a required folder. Before going with the operations, let me give you a small requirement procedure for following with the application. I have installed Jupyter Notebook in my system and we require certain necessary packages installed before starting with the operation. I require Pandas data frame, which is panel data frame representation for this process, and also numerical Python can be installed along with this working nature. And once the necessary CSV files are stored in the respective folders, we are going to do an step-by-step procedure for uploading the required CSV files into the Pandas data frame. Now to start with, these are all the various file formats which are to be shown as an implementation procedure. The very first step is we are going to upload an comma separated file, and the second example is we are going to upload a comma separated file which does not contain an header information. The next method is you are going to upload an URL from internet. And fourth step is you are going to upload an text file or a notepad file into the Pandas data frame. And the fifth step is you are going to upload a text file where the comma is the separator between input features. Right? By default, the tab is the separator in case of a notepad file. And suppose if you have an comma separated representation, then how do we do the process? And the last one what we are going to do is how do we upload the content from an XLSX file. So to start with the operations, I am going to show you the implementation procedure through a Jupyter notebook. Please stay back. Now I am going to show you the implementation of loading data set into Pandas data frame. To start with, we have to import necessary packages. We are importing OS package. The purpose of OS package is to show the present working directory and what is the directory which we want to change into. And import pandas as PD is going to help us to perform the operations on a Pandas data frame. And now we are going to execute this particular cell. In order to execute this particular cell, either I can use this triangle representation of running the cell, or I can click on run from the menu operation and I'm going to run the selected cell, or we can use the shortcut method of shift plus enter. So I'm going to run it. Once the particular cell has been executed, I have received an output of c:/user/admin, which shows that my current working directory is c:/user/admin. But I have kept all my CSV files and XLSX files and notepad files in a location called as e:/machine learning/loading dataset into data frames. This is my specific location where all my dataset files are available. So I'm going to copy the path of the particular location and I'm just going to paste it here. In certain versions, we can use a single backslash, and in certain cases we are supposed to use a double backslash. So accordingly execute the command. So I'm going to use my change directory option, where chdir helps you to change the current working directory from c:/user/admin to e:/machine learning/loading dataset into dataframes folder. And once it has been changed, I just want to ensure whether my current working directory is changed to machine learning/loading dataset into dataframes folder. So I'm going to execute this particular cell, run it, and ensure that my output is perfectly giving me the same folder name. And after the current working directory has been set, now I'm going to start with my first step. I'm going to read a CSV file. The name of my CSV file is emp_dataset.csv. I'm going to execute this command, and after the command has been executed, the output has been generated in such a way that it gives me the given dataset file has been shown in the form of a row and column representation or in the form of a data frame format. So I have my emp ID, gender, age, sales, BMI, income as my feature variable name or column name, and these are all the respective rows information. Now coming to the second command, I am going to read a CSV file which does not contain an header information. So I have the content of a file which does not have an header information. Now I'm going to execute this particular command. After execution, my output is given in such a way that the first row of my file is treated as my header information, which is not appropriate because first row has to be in the first row representation, and so I am going to give an information to the machine stating that this particular data set does not have an header information. If header information is not available in your particular data set, by default read_csv command will take the first row as your header information, but this is absolutely inappropriate. So to overcome this problem, I am going to read the same read underscore CSV, that is no header.emp CSV file, with an additional parameter of header is equal to none. So I personally instruct that this particular header data file does not contain a header information, so I'm going to give the option as header is equal to none. After executing this command, ensure that the first row is the E001 row, but the header information has been replaced by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. The next representation is how do you import an file from an URL in your internet. So we are going to use the same command of read_csv, and appropriately the URL information is provided in the read CSV command. Once this has been executed, my output is in the form of a data frame representation. Suppose the given URL is not available or it is not available in your network. Obviously, it gives me an error message of 404 file not found. And the next command is how do you read a notepad file, which means an txt file or a file which has been written in a notepad representation. Let us assume that I have a notefile.txt and I am going to read a notepad file or notefile.txt by the command read_table. So the CSV files are read by the command read_csv, and the txt file is read by the command read_table, and I'm going to execute this particular cell. On execution, this is my respective output. Assume that this notepad file has a comma separator, right, which means every column is separated by a comma. By default, the notepad file will also be separated by a tab representation. Assume that you have a notepad file which has been separated by comma. So every column is separated by a comma. Now when I executed this particular command, I get an output in this format, which is not a proper representation. So in order to give an instruction to the read_table command that this particular data file which is in the form of a txt representation, contains the separator as comma. So I'm explicitly giving an information into my read underscore table command that the separator is comma. You can have any separators, but in this particular example I have comma as my separator, and on executing this particular command I'm getting an appropriate output where all the column informations are flown into its correct path. And the next representation is how do you read an Excel file. Let us assume that we have an Excel file, and let me show you the Excel file in the appropriate screen format. So now let me go into the Excel file, and this is my respective Excel file. Here the Excel file contains an header information of the college name, the department name, the subject code, the particular batch and the date. All these informations are available, but all these are not required for any data analysis operation. So the first 5 rows are not going to be used for any data analysis operation. I am going to use the following rows only for the data analysis operation. So I have to skip these 5 rows into the process. So now let me again join back. Here I am going to read my python lab marks.xlsx file. So here when I executed this particular command, this is how my output has been generated, which means all the empty values, all the initial rows are also given in the output representation. But according to my case, I want only the informations from the register number 1 to register number 50, skipping up the first 5 rows, that is the header informations of this particular Excel file. So in order to do that appropriate operation, I am going to include a command called as skip rows is equal to 5. How many number of rows you want to skip and how many values you want to take into the operation, you are just going to give an specification here. Now after execution, this is my respective output where the college name, the department name, the batch, the particular academic year, all those rows has been skipped, and I'm getting only the respective necessary values which is dealt for data analysis operation. I hope everybody is clear with the implementation of loading data set into data frames. Thank you all. Wish you a happy learning.